Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Okay, I'm not doing that whole thing. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. It's me, Geekasaurus Mike, and with me today is Joey Mason of Joemiroquai.
Hello.
And in the recent past, I was over at Joey's house, and we played a lot of classic Super Nintendo and original Nintendo games. So today we're going to be talking about some classic 8-bit and 16-bit platformers, point-and-click adventures, and I don't know how to qualify that police one.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that later. I would say put that under adventure, platformer, stealth.
Shooter.
That's what I put it under.
You put it under a lot of things, don't you, Joey?
I do put it under a lot of things. I also put it in a lot of things, if you know what I'm saying.
I don't know how to take that, but okay. So I guess we start with a game that most people remember, or at least have heard tales of, and that is Punch-Out!
Oh, jeez.
Now that was you and our friend Joel played that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a spectacle to observe.
It was, and it was a learning experience because Joel has never gone beyond, I think, Soda Popinski. And I haven't played that game in a long time either. And it was really nice when all of us came together because I have a nice big tote full of video games from the Nintendo and Super Nintendo era. So we're playing. I've never beaten it. I don't really have intentions to beat it right now. But anyways, I think when Joel first played it, he got to Soda Popinski. And I played it. I got past him. I think I got past the other time you fight Bald Bull. And then
Sandman was the last person.
Yes.
Yeah, because you had to use the cheat to get to Mr. Dream. Because this was not Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!
Yes, because... Let me see, I got to like Don Flamenco, and then thankfully Joel got warmed up enough that he actually made it past Don Flamenco, made it past Sandman, and I think he got to... Was it Super Macho Man?
It might have been. You know, Joel's Musou gauge hit maximum, and he...
Say, Joel's in full swing, and you know that, like, it was slowly starting to burn out, so we had to get as much as we could out of it. But we did put in a code to get Mr. Dream, and...
got destroyed.
We died. A lot.
Have you ever watched the Game Grumps where John and Danny try to fight Mr. T? It was worse than that. Or not Mr. T. Yes, if you get all the way to the end, you fight Mr. T. It's a little known secret. No, Mike Tyson.
Oh yeah.
It was like that, but far worse.
Yeah, I mean, at least on the Game Grumps version, from what I've gathered, like, they can make it past, like, the first, 20 seconds, sometimes. But now,
yeah.
It was tough.
It did not look easy.
It wasn't, but you know what? That'll give us something to aspire to do. Even though I don't have any intentions right now of beating it, maybe one of these days, later on down the road, or later on in life, maybe put it on my bucket list, or something like that, to go and beat it.
We all need dreams that keep us going.
But there was one game that I think we excelled in.
What was that?
Once we got rolling. Another game for the Nintendo, a game that I loved playing, and Joel couldn't get past the first stage of it. A little game called Kung Fu. Now, Kung Fu is a very simple game in my mind. I used to be able to beat it when I was a kid, and even starting later on that night. I used to be able to beat it without losing a life. I used to be able to just be like, oh, well, I have a 10-minute break. I'll go beat Kung Fu. Because it's all about, it's just a side-scrolling fighting game. Well, not fighting game, but I guess...
Kind of like a proto-beat-em-up?
Yeah, like a proto-beat-em-up, final fight without moving up and down. And you have the punch button, and you have the kick button. You never punch until, the fourth boss. And there's only 5 bosses. You just kick everything else. But Joel, I think he got better at it after a while. But
eventually he just handed me the controller in frustration.
Yeah.
past the first screen on my first try. It's okay because our friend Joel is insane at most other video games, so...
Well, that was kind of the funny thing, was kind of talking about Joel, making him like this big rumored figure or whatever. Joel is insanely good at fighting games. Like, you have to be on your A game just to, like, watch him play, let alone try to fight him.
Such as when we went 2-on-1 in Dead or Alive.
Yeah, I mean, we had to change... There was one time where it was Mike and I versus Joel, and Joel controlled both characters, and we had to go through like 4 different character changes, and we lost, 20 times?
I believe we lost 19 times. On the 20th time, we finally pulled it off.
Yeah, and then we just shut the game off, because we're like, this is good enough for us.
Well, by like the 12th loss, Joel was like, do you guys want to like play something else? And we were just like, no! We must!
That Joel was my Moby's dick, man. I had to beat him.
Moby Dick, not Moby's.
Well, you know, I read a different version. Like this translated version.
I found it on the internet.
Yeah.
On fanfiction.net.
I was gonna say, I read a fanfic.
You know all those Melville
Melville
fanfic writers.
I was gonna say, I think Bella and Edward were in it too. But freaking yeah. And so it was really odd to see how good he was at practically every other game that we've played, and then he just struggled in simple 8-bit 2D run across the screen and just kick everything. So it was an interesting moment. If you have a friend like that, you should comment or subscribe.
And if you don't have a friend like that, you should still comment and subscribe.
Because Joel may be on one of these podcasts, and we can make fun of him all together for him not being able to beat Kung Fu.
Indeed. Well, one game that Joel and I played was River City Ransom. It was actually the first time I had ever played that game. And spin kick. Or like the Samus roll in the air.
Oh, Acro Circus.
Acro Circus.
Yeah!
Dun 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 dun, Afro Circus. Dun 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 dun. I was surprised with like how ahead of its time that game was, because I mean, the only side-scrolling beat-em-up that I really had any experience with beforehand would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time. And like to see how little had changed between River City Ransom and Turtles in Time, I thought was very interesting. It had like power-ups and all this other stuff that you don't generally think the NES would be capable of.
Oh yeah, and that's something that I really liked about that game. Was I remember playing it with my brother a ton, and I remember one of us would get the 3-punch, and the other one would get like the 3-kick, where you just press the button and it does it. And I know like some people really don't like that game because they're like, the only way you power up is if you eat. And I'm just like, you know, if you really play through it well enough, you don't really need to eat food. You just need to do the kicks and things like that. But we learned a lot of things from playing that. Some that we forgot about because we're spoiled by new generation video games, like everybody else, is the 6-line password to get where we were if we were to quit.
Are you basically like programming the disc? Or programming the cartridge?
Yeah. But no, I always enjoyed that game. Just because it was very, not open world, but I mean, if you want to, you could like essentially run to the final boss and see what happens. I mean, you'll most likely lose, but you know.
There's an element of choice that wasn't present in a whole lot of other games.
Oh yeah.
You know what other game had an element of choice and free roaming? Maniac Mansion.
Oh, that was a game I played.
That was, Joey was very excited to show us that game, and it was interesting.
It's It's so weird. I feel like if there's any time people are going to hate us, it's going to be right now. Because a lot of people that played that when they were kids thought Maniac Mansion was crazy scary. And like, the game, and I can imagine like back in the day, that game could be like really cool. Like that game would just like melt kids' faces. But playing on it now, and I was really excited because I remember watching my brother play it and me trying to play it but being too scared when Nurse Edna would catch you in the kitchen. Because I wasn't good enough to get out of the room. But...
Still isn't, but I mean...
Yeah. I'm still not. It was more consisting of me screaming at the TV. But that was back when the NES couldn't sense that danger. So I was really excited to be like, oh man, this game's great. Oh yeah, it's so good. And it was like, have you ever, it's like when you listen to an album or you watch a movie in which you really, really want it to be good. And you remember it being so good, and then you watch it again and you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to compare it to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie that I actually quite liked when I was like 10 and 11, and I can't sit through it now.
Well, and it's, I don't know, because it's just like, I remember back in the day where it was like, I thought it was cool to like do like the point and click things, where you like go here, open, door. Because it felt like it was like a PC game moved to the Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
But now, we're used to doing things so quickly that doing things like that feels so much slower than what we're used to now. And like, the other thing too is that I totally forgot on what to do and how to fix things. And I feel like it might have been one of those games where you needed a Nintendo Power to help you through it.
Yeah, I will give the game that it had something that I think a lot of horror games lack these days. And that's, if the doctor or Nurse Edna catch you, it's game over for that character. Unless, there's a way to get out of the basement dungeon thing. And there might be, I don't know. But, in a lot of games these days, you're handed, especially in, say, like Resident Evil, you're armed to the teeth a lot of the time. And, just Ramboing your way out is an option. And I think that there's definitely something to be said for the horror genre when there is a force that you can't stop that could come out at any moment.
Oh yeah, and I think something else that I liked about it too, because the way I talked about it, it made it sound like I absolutely hated the game. And I didn't. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I felt like as a kid I thought it was a lot more exciting. But like as I got older I realized, I don't know if I just became desensitized to excitement in video games. But I just felt like things were slow paced. And I mean, that's what happens. Even though it's slow paced, it's still random, so you still have that element to it. But I will say one thing I really did like about it was you talked about being armed to the teeth. There's not much you can do. I also kind of like the approach to it, because you think these people are like evil, and yeah, they are evil, but you realize that they're still like another family. So like you see this big tentacle thing, and it just wants to drink Pepsi. It's just really thirsty. So I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
That's all.
There was more to the character than you initially thought.
Yeah, because you're just like, ooh, big tentacle monster, but it's just like, I'm hungry, and I'm kind of thirsty. So that was pretty cool.
Can someone give me a sandwich?
Yes. And so, let me see, we played those games. One game that it took us a little bit of getting used to, and thank goodness for game FAQs, game facts, whatever, is a game called Rescue Embassy Mission.
That was a very, more of a point and click, well, not a point and click adventure, I guess, but it was put together very odd. Like, if you ever played one of those really early Flash games like on Newgrounds, where it's like a series of pictures that you can click left, right, or forward and it will give you another picture. That's a lot how the ending parts of the levels to the game reminded me.
And it's funny because two games that I really liked but scared the heck out of me for the Nintendo were Uninvited and Shadowgate. And so those games are set up like that, where it's kind of that first-person perspective, but you have to click where you go. But the game had a lot of elements to it. When I played through it, there's really 4 different gameplay modes. There was the first mode, which was like stealthy, getting your guys over to the places they're supposed to. The second mode was sort of first-person shooter-ish, where you had to shoot out the windows and shoot the terrorists in the building. The third part, which was the most annoying part, was getting your guys down the building and have them kick in a window or whatever to get them into the building. And then the fourth part was just like very early, kind of like what Mike talked about. The whole, you click one direction, you go like one space that way. And turning around and shooting all the terrorists. I feel like that game was like... I feel like if they would have made the transitions better, and most of all, add a lot more length to it, I feel like it could have been a really standout game. Mm-hmm. Like, it was still good, but we played it once we figured things out, we played it for less than an hour, and we were already like halfway through the game.
Yeah, and there really was no variation to what you were doing.
Yeah, and I mean, it was... Once you got the hang of everything, I thought it was pretty fun, but I mean, you scaled the same buildings. You shot at the same windows. You ran around, if they would have changed the environment and put more into it, I feel like it really could have stood out.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's okay.
But they didn't.
They didn't.
And then there was a game that was just eye rape of color.
Oh, we're gonna bring this up?
Yeah. What was it called? Mappyland?
People don't know about it. It's called Mappyland.
Ugh.
Mappyland. It's a fun game for the Nintendo.
If you want your retinas burned in record time, it's a great way to do it.
It's a platformer game in which you just have to, you do the typical, you run through a level, you collect things, and then you just keep running. I'm going to tell you about this game. Mike hinted at it. This game, I know some people are like, oh, games sometimes they can be bright with the neons. The games that come out nowadays have nothing on Mappyland.
This game's color and art design was like, it was like Dr. Seuss had sex with Light Bright.
Pretty much. Like, it was, there's no shading, and it's just bright colors. And if you still can see, this game is actually really hard.
Yeah. If this game was made by J.J. Abrams, it would just be lens flares.
Oh, so, essentially, yeah. Or if this game were like DDR, it would just be like, it'd be like the Dropout of DDR. Like, Dropout, that song always had sirens and just lights and just epilepsy. It's like Epilepsy the game. That's what Mappyland is. It just...
And if your eyes can see past the colors to the actual obstacles and goals, it's really hard.
And I mean, we played that for only like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, because we will be blind if we continue playing this game.
I think that might be one of those games that I might see if I can beat. Just because I tried to look up Mappyland, and there's not much information on it, just because people like died after playing it because it seared through their skull.
Yeah.
That's my theory. It's fan theory. But yeah, no. Did we play any other Nintendo games that night?
Yes, we played, there's a game, do not remember what it was called. I believe you had like a jetpack of some sort, and you flew through space.
Oh, Section Z!
Section Z, yes.
Yeah, Section Z was I actually thought that was pretty cool. It was,
it was a really good game.
It was made by, and I looked at the box art again. That game was made by Capcom. Thought that was fancy. But Section Z was a very Gradius-esque kind of shooter where you're flying through space. And it was kind of cool because obviously you move up and down with the D-pad, but if you press A, you shoot to the right, but if you press B, you shoot to the left. And those are the entire controls.
Yeah. And
obviously you collect power-ups and stuff. But something else that I also really liked was at the end of like each stage or whatever, like the end of each stage, there were 2 ways that you could go, generally. And so you, instead of going like Section 1, you go to like Section 3. And then after you are there, there's 2 other pathways. And so you transport to different sections. Only thing I didn't like about this was I found myself backtracking a lot. Mm-hmm. But once you figure out the scheme on where to go, then you can make it to the boss. But that took like over an hour to figure that out. But then again, I wasn't really focusing on it too hard, and it only took me going to Section 5 or whatever 4 times to be like, hey, this place is really familiar. Like,
it's doing a loop. Was there a time limit on that?
There wasn't a time limit, but I know that there was like an energy limit. So like you had like 20 hit points or whatever. So if you got hit, it would take like 2 or 3 hit points off. And so it was always good to like keep your energy up.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that was it was an interesting game that I never really dove into that much.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we tied it up with we played other games too, but I remember we tied it up with a good classic, which was Super Mario Bros. 3.
Yeah, we did. I am, if I may toot my own horn, I at least was really good at that game in the Super Mario All-Star version. Somewhat less so on the original NES version.
Gotcha.
There's something about, like, my thumb placement to do the sprint, where I can do it and jump at the same time easier than I can on the regular NES. But we got pretty far, didn't we?
I think so. And after a while, you got, like, the warp whistle. So it went to World 7 or something, I don't remember. It was the water wall. It was the one that was green and blue.
Yeah, water worlds tend to be the bane of my existence.
Well, I remember playing through that, and just that pyramid level. I don't know what happened, but I was just sucking during that pyramid level. But it's weird to see. Oh, we'll get to that later, talk about the different games. But I'll save my point for later. Sorry.
Okay. So going on to the Super Nintendo.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Before we do that, I think that you were still upstairs for this, but Joel and I actually played Gauntlet.
Oh, really?
For the NES for a little while, yeah.
How's that?
It was pretty good. As somebody who, the entire summer before 7th grade, me and my neighbor basically lived in my garage and played Gauntlet Dark Legacy to the point that I had a level 100 Jester. So I'm familiar with later iterations of the series, but again, it was obviously graphically it was very basic, but gameplay-wise it was quite similar, although I was annoyed that they did the things the arcade did. I guess it did it first, but where your health is continuously going down.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you play it in the arcade, it would do that, and I thought that they just invented that. So you'd have to keep feeding quarters in, but nope, it was in the original one. Annoying.
I mean, all of our health's going down, really, if you think about it.
We all have a finite amount of sand in the hourglass.
I'm gonna listen to my AFI album now.
I'm gonna go buy a Stepping Westward CD.
Oh, dude! I forgot about that band.
Oh, we all wish we did. No. But yeah, going on to the Super Nintendo. For me, it was actually quite a nostalgia trip when we did that, because I didn't have a NES for a substantial part of my memory. I had a Super Nintendo, and two of the games that I would always play would be Aladdin, which we can talk about later, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time.
Oh, jeez.
Such a good game. Like, when it first came up and it was like, 9 a.m., level name. I was like, oh my god, I'm like 8 years old again. How did this happen?
Yeah, so that was a game you and Joel played through, right?
Yep.
Gotcha.
I'm only 5'6". What's going on?
At 8 years old? Jesus!
Oh yeah, I was well over 6 feet by 10.
Oh!
But
I'm glad you stopped.
me too.
At like 7 foot.
For those of you who don't know, my name's Geeksaurus Mike on here because I'm 7 feet tall. So I was looking for something with size in it, so dinosaurs, so Saurus.
I mean, I think you sound tall. But you know.
Your voice sounds really high up there.
I have to like lean up just to hear you.
Even though it's in speakers.
Yeah.
But no, that's a really good game. I just thought that it had very solid hit detection, which is a weakness with some side-scrolling beat-em-ups and just fighting games in general from the early days. It had a variety of things you could do to attack the enemy. You could interact with the stage. There were things that you could either blow up or pick up or flip over, and it was everything that I remembered it being, and I was really glad to see that.
You didn't have a Maniac Mansion attack?
I did not have a Maniac Mansion attack, and I got to play Donatello, which always makes it better.
Oh yeah, dude.
Even though in that game they all have the same hit range, to encourage you to be everyone, I guess.
To make you think that nunchucks were better than a bow staff.
Bless you, I think, unless you just screamed in rage about nunchucks.
I like nunchucks!
I always play as Max against Soul Calibur.
Oh.
Hey, if you can string combos with him,
Oh yeah.
then you're still better off playing Talon, but still.
I'll see. If you're like me, you go Raphael, man.
Oh, I always go Keelik.
You go, no escape!
No escape.
That's my favorite Raphael. I think it was in Soul Calibur 2, where he's like, no! I remember when we first played it, he's like, no escape! And so, it's like junior high, so all my friends were like, no escape!
Nice. No, it'd be Keelik with his Jungle!
Oh yeah. Oh,
And then
go back on.
it killed him off.
Oh, it did?
There was something that he wasn't in Soul Calibur 5, because at the end of his story mode in 4, he and potentially Zhanghua, if you play hers, they get sent to another dimension, or they get vaporized or something goes horribly wrong. And Keelik's not in number 5, it's some new person with the bow staff.
They did the American version of Dragon Ball Z where they were sent to the other dimension.
They did that at the end of the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Oh, dude, yeah. And going back on a previous topic, did you ever play the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games for the Nintendo?
Not that I remember.
Oh. Well, you probably repressed the first one. Because, for those of you who don't know, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, that's the one where you can pick all four, and it's kind of like side-scroller beat 'em up, but then it's all and kind of platformer, but then it's also top-down sometimes. But no matter which mode you play in, this game is inhuman. And ask any gamer that is between 22 to 30 and just go Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dam level. Because this game is notorious for, once again, a water level in which the coral are all like electrified, but you have to defuse bombs, and you only have like a fixed time to do it. I remember my brother getting very angry while playing that, so something to think. But things that we didn't get angry about was, I think it was one of the few other games, it might have been the only other game that we played on Super Nintendo that weekend, was Mike's Jam, Aladdin.
Oh man. The only reason I haven't done a Let's Play of Aladdin myself is because JonTron, or Game Grumps did it, and I don't want to completely rip them off, but Aladdin, the Capcom version, that I still remembered somehow the cheat to get to the Genie's level.
Yeah.
Didn't use it, played it from the beginning, but that's such a good game. Like, it kicked its ass too.
Yeah, you did. You beat it. We even heard like the generic MIDI version of A Whole New World.
Oh, during the collection level?
Yeah.
Yeah, that and Super Mario Bros. 3 is where, like, I practiced all of my 2D side-scrolling skills. I was still playing Aladdin when I was like 15, and I had a PS2, and I played it until my basement flooded, and, like, the controller broke.
Oh, damn.
But I found a new one from our local game store, and now it's all good. But yeah, it was another game where it was great back then. It's still fantastic. The genie level inside the genie's lamp is trippy as hell.
Yeah, it is.
Everything is the genie's face. And then you go to Egypt for some reason, because I think the excuse in the game is Abu falls off the magic carpet.
Okay.
And you have to go down and get him, and for some reason there's purple versions of the soldiers you've been fighting.
You know, one of those 90s things, you know, where instead of like changing the enemies, you just make the normal enemy but change their color so they're stronger.
Yeah. I will say one thing I don't quite like about the game is that the human version of Jafar is so much harder than his final form. Like, if you can beat human Sorcerer Jafar, you can beat Giant Snake Jafar. Giant Snake Jafar is a joke.
He really was. Like, he was watching it, he didn't seem to be that hard.
He basically throws you at his weak spot. Come jump on my head, just do it.
I just like the fact that everything in that game is solved by you just jumping on people.
Oh yeah.
Just to be like in the movie, you know, with Jafar going crazy. If Aladdin was just like, ah! It just jumped on him. Thought it'd be a different ending.
Well, you can jump on them, you can throw apples at them, and you can use the blanket to glide.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I ever used the apples during the game, though.
So you didn't use them very much.
It's just something with those kind of games that my mindset is generally just like, run forward and plow through it, no time for apples. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, I recently have been playing through the original Super Mario, again on the All-Star version, and like, half the time I will just stay basic, short Mario, and just run through.
You're a madman.
Getting the power-up slows you down, and I find it actually easier to get through the end castles to each world as the mini Mario, because you can avoid things easier. And when when the fake Bowsers jump, you can just run under them.
Feels like there's a life lesson to be had right there.
Yeah.
Only getting better will make you not fit in places. That's one thing.
You should write fortune cookies, Joey.
Just like that. Getting better, ... question mark, will make you not fit in places
He'll make you. But no, I found in that game that you either need to be basic Mario or you need to have the firepower. There's no use being just the middle tier.
Oh yeah.
You're a bigger target, and you can't do anything better aside from break blocks.
Gotcha.
So,
Did we play anything else during our weekend slumber party? Nintendo, Super Nintendo wise?
Contra.
Oh, yes we did.
We took on the beast out of the Contra code.
Yep.
I believe Joel and I got most of the way through the second world. I know it's probably not divided into worlds, but ever since Mario, I always divide games into stages, then worlds, then so on and so forth, but I believe you and Joel got farther than me and Joel did.
I remember I got to the last boss on stage 5, the snow level. Because that's when the big tanks come, and I was just pounding the B button, shooting as fast as I can. And I got through those 2 tanks, all with like no lives left. I'm just running, no continues, plowing through it. And I think it was the last guy. I was about to kill him, and then he just hits me. And so it was over.
We were just demoralized after that.
It's a game where you have to keep your spirits up. I swear that Contra and Ninja Gaiden, I think, are both games that, like, if you're in a bad mood, you're not going to do very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be like, oh, I died, and take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, you just got so close that it was just turn it off and let's go eat more Trailer Park pasta.
Pretty much.
Drown our sorrows in mac and cheese and chili.
Yeah, same. Trailer Park pasta is a staple in the Joey household. It's so good. Actually, my mom made some today, so hey.
You got another vat of it to survive on for the week on?
It was not nearly as big as when you guys were here.
Okay.
Because when my mom made it, like, she used a whole box of macaroni and cheese. I used a whole box of macaroni, a whole block of Velveeta, 2 cans of beanless chili, and a whole pack of hot dogs.
Jesus.
Yeah. And she's just like, I just want you guys to have food for the weekend. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Your mom is an awesome lady, but I feel like I would die if I ever stayed at your house too long.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm not a small person by any means. And I feel like after people stay at my house for a couple days, they're like, I can see why you are the size and shape you are. Just because my mom's food, and actually it's kind of funny because this is the way that I cook too. My mom's food is very dense. Like,
it's super tasty.
Like, it's really good, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want more, but like, it just sits in your stomach like concrete. Where the only thing you can do is just lay down and digest. And be like, oh my god!
What's happening in my digestive tract right now?
Yeah, but I mean, that's how we do it here. And everyone says, like, I would be 500 pounds if I lived here. I'm like, explaining my size. It's okay.
Explains you and Jimmy.
Yeah.
And Riker. But
well, we'll talk about my family bloodlines later, but
that's true. But I believe that's all the classic games we played.
So, Mike, I had a question for you.
Hey Joey, I got an answer for you.
Oh, I hope they line up. So we went through a lot. We went through a lot.
7.
That's what I was looking for.
Woohoo!
What I was going to say.
Around. Alright, I'll stop dicking around. What?
You're the best. Dick it around. It's never going to dick you down. How do you dig down? I don't know. I'm not a logistics person. But
somebody call UPS for that.
Yeah, I don't know. Just, Anyways. So we played a lot of different video games.
Yes.
We talked about, and goes back to the point that I was going to say earlier, but I saved it till now.
Oh man.
what I liked about games like Rescue Embassy Mission, River City Ransom, but really Super Mario Bros. 3, even Aladdin, those games aged well.
This is true.
I think that's almost universal kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ask you, since you're smarter than me, what factors do you think contributes to having a more preserved game?
Like more timeless one?
A more timeless one rather than a more disposable one?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the limiting factors that the hardware for that generation of games could handle. They really had to focus on the gameplay because they couldn't focus on anything else. They had to find a way to make something and make it fun. Because today, in a lot of games, it almost seems like the gameplay and the enjoyment comes secondary to the story or the graphics or all of that stuff. It's why games today take years to make and cost $60 to $80 when they finally do come out. But back in those days, because they had those limits on them, they were forced to focus on what was important. And that was just having an enjoyable game. And that's not to say every game for the Nintendo and for the Super Nintendo are intrinsically better than what we have today. Look at Mappy Land. Don't look at Mappy Land, that will kill you. It is beyond our mortal understanding, but games like Mario, games like Aladdin, platformers, the shooters, the beat-em-ups, they were forced to focus on the gameplay, and I think that's what has made them last to this day. It's what makes iPhone games and Flash games so popular today, is that there's not all this auxiliary stuff surrounding it. Go ahead.
Okay. Listen, and I'm really glad that you kind of talked about with the whole gameplay thing. And I feel like a lot of times when video games come out, they don't put gameplay first. They don't really put the fans first, in my opinion. Because there are games that they can look absolutely beautiful. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. And so, okay, I'll give you a prime example. Alan Wake. Mm-hmm. That's a game for 360. Now, some people like Alan Wake, some people don't. But I remember playing it, and my mom walks in, and she goes, "What movie are you watching?" And I'm like, "It's a video game." And she's like, "Oh, well, it looks like a movie." And a lot of times people say like, "Oh, that game's so beautiful, it looks just like a movie." But I feel like people take too many cinematic elements, or be like, they don't put the gameplay first. Like, it wasn't obvious that I was playing a game. Mm-hmm. And so, it's really funny to see, like, the concepts back then, and how they were built. And it makes you think, do you think games like Mario, or things like that, do you think those would be popular today if they came out today?
If they came out today, I think they would have come out on iOS.
Yeah.
Or on something like Newgrounds, and I think they would have been immensely popular on those platforms, but they would have been snubbed by the AAA producers.
That's kind of how I felt, because imagine it being like... Alright, I'll give you an example, like the game, like Shovel Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Shovel Knight gets a lot of hate, because they're like, it's just a platformer, but you have a shovel. And so I'm like, well, Mario is a dude running across the screen, and he fights a dinosaur, and he steps on mushrooms. Like, I know I'm going to get all sorts of hate. Oh, jeez, I'm going to regret this in the future. But, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of indie game concepts, and a lot of people are like, that's stupid. Why would the person have a shovel? If you look at older games, there's always, like, that little gimmick about it. There's always that, like, it's almost like the trademark thing about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, you can have a platformer, but you gotta add something different.
Yeah, and that's It's the thing. It's adding something new to the equation, and that's really the same thing if you're trying to make something not just revolutionary, but good. Be it a video game, be it a movie, a TV show, a book. Because coming up with a new concept is so rare, you almost always have to take an old concept, but add something to it. One game that comes to mind, a recent game that looks very pretty, but will not be remembered for probably the next 5 years, is the Final Fantasy XIII franchise, because it has its own sequels now, which... But if you look at it, it's very striking visuals, it's very pretty to look at. You can't understand what's going on, which in and of itself might not be too bad, because in Mario you have no idea either. Like, the old games we're talking about are very minimal in that respect. But not only does this game kind of actively confuse you, the gameplay just isn't very fun. It's so wrapped up in being cinematic and pretty to look at that it almost doesn't want you to ruin it. So it tries to take control from you whenever it can.
Well, it's kind of funny that you talk about that, because what I feel like the difference between Mario and Final Fantasy XIII is that they both throw you in a world. Like, a lot of games just threw you right in, especially in the early times. But
ye olden days.
Yeah, in the ye olden times, the 8-bit times, the 16-bit times. But I also felt like people didn't need to justify what you were doing. I feel like people were... I'm not talking dumb about, the people like last generations or whatever, but I feel like people were so blown away that you're able to just make this dude run across the screen. And oh cool, you're jumping on mushrooms. Oh cool, you're doing this. And who gives this shit if the princess is in another castle? That just means you get to play more levels. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like a lot kind of... It made me ponder, like, if that game comes out now, I feel like the game would get a lot of flack, because they'd be like, well, why is the princess in another castle? What's that person doing here? Why am I stepping on this? And so I feel like now people try to throw you into things, and then they have to, like, try to justify it later, when that concept, unless if you can really pull it off well, and you don't wait too long, or you just do it Final Fantasy 13 does, and then put it all in a book that shoddily explains it. So, I don't know.
Hand the player an encyclopedia and say, read this if you want to know what's happening, and even then, you probably will still have a lot of questions.
But to me, like, I know you get, like, an instruction manual. Well, you used to get instruction manuals, and you would read them to be like, oh, cool, pretty pictures. At least that's what I did. But, like, what's the point? I don't know. To me, with 13, and this is kind of going on a side tangent, whatever, but, like, I don't know. What really bothered me about that was that there were, like, key points, and there were things that, like, I didn't know about that could have been beneficial to the plot, with, like, how people fail or something like that they just, like, didn't bring up. And so they expected you to read that book to, like, get a feel for it. And I'm like, I'm playing a game for a reason. So I don't need to do that. And in RPGs you read a lot already, or at least you used to, before everything became voice dialogue, that's it.
Dialogue heavy, yeah.
Just hit a real road bump right there.
Well, Joey, there's at least one modern game I can think of that doesn't concern itself too much with story or dialogue or characters or really that graphically, and focuses on having a variety of gameplay types that are legitimately fun and put you into the situation with a fairly effective control system. And you know what game that is?
I have an idea, but I want to see if you and I are thinking the same thing.
It's the WWE SmackDown vs. Raw series.
Oh my god!
That we also played that weekend.
Yes,
things got real.
We yelled things that I have never yelled.
What made... I decided afterwards that what made that game so good is that when you get knocked down, you have to tap buttons quickly to get up. And the more damage you've taken, the quicker you have to tap, the harder it is to pick yourself back up. And that's super effective. And getting you really, really focused on the game, because like those ladder matches.
Say we only played ladder matches, really.
We did a couple of Extreme Rules, Tornado Tag.
Yeah.
But the ladder matches, you got one person's trying to climb the ladder and you've just gotten Tombstone Pile driven, and you're like, you gotta get up, and you're trying to mash the buttons, and your guy's like slowly trying to get up, and you're just mashing it as fast as you can. You're like, come on, get up! And just while we were playing, and the point that whoever touched the belt next would get it, and we were all standing up and jumping up and down. I realized later, like, when was the last time a video game made me do that?
Well, and when playing a ladder match against people, and not only that, but having two other people that you have to worry about, oh my god, like, especially, like you said, when you get to the... I know there was one match where, in SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, with a ladder match, obviously you gotta climb the ladder and grab the belt. But you just don't do that and then grab the belt and it's over. The belt has a gauge. And if the gauge runs out, whoever grabs the belt is the person that wins. And it got to the point where there was this tiny sliver of belt left. So if any of us were able to get up that ladder and just touch the belt, then we would win. And that just made the stakes so much higher. And you saw 3 grown men huddling over the TV and just screaming things that maybe not really at each other. Which that was another nice thing too. We weren't being like, Mike, you're such a whatever. Like, we were yelling at our characters to get up.
Yeah, it was... I don't even know.
But no, kind of like you said, and it was multiplayer games, well, back in the day when you would have to invite your friends over to your house to play them, you would have to have the right game. Mm-hmm. Because a clear example of this, I remember one of my friends from high school, every year he had a birthday celebration where he'd go to like his little like RV thing. Cause it's cool because it's like we're camping but we're not because we're in a giant freaking mechanical house. And we would play Halo. And it just always ended up a bad night where we just hated each other. Because Halo just brings out the worst in people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember one year we played like 2 or 3 hours of Halo. We were so mad. We turned on GoldenEye. Less than 15 minutes we were laughing and joking.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's the rose-colored lenses we play through, or just a different element of fun. But SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, the game's only a few years old, and it's relatively this. I mean, a German suplex has been the same since the beginning.
It's competitive without. I don't want to say it's competitive without really putting you all against each other, but. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, there's one goal that you're all working towards. You're not actively going against everyone else. You're trying. It's like Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's
you're sabotaging them, but you have a goal outside of just get a high kill streak.
Well, and that's kind of like how you said off that, because I remember like if Joel would be up the ladder, you and I would do anything that we can to stop it. And the instant Joel gets off the ladder, you and I are attacking each other.
Oh yeah. Truces were made and broken with lightning speed.
So we made so many close bonds, then okay, see ya.
Okay, he's off, and then just beat the other person with the ladder mercilessly.
And I also think with multiplayer games, it's also the company you keep when you play. Because, I mean, if we had someone that was really whiny and was like, quit hitting me! when it's a game where you hit people.
You just need that one person who takes it too seriously. Like, I did a video a while back you should check out about tabletop games and Dungeons & Dragons, where the bad times and the bad reputation always comes from the one person who takes it way too seriously. And like I say in the video, if you can't relate to D&D, think of playing pickup sports. Backyard sports, you go to a hoop at a park and shoot. It can be ruined if there's the one guy who treats it like, it's the NBA championship. And, like, he'll legitimately get angry at his teammates if he doesn't think they're performing well, or he'll legitimately start disliking people if he feels that they're not playing to his standards. And it really only takes one person like that to ruin everything, but we had a good thing that night. The stars aligned, and we didn't have that.
Yeah, and I also think that the people, this is more me just ranting, about that, I feel like the people that don't take it seriously have been in that situation enough with the guy that takes things seriously. So, like, since you, me, and Joel have all, been in a situation like that, where, it's gonna be lighthearted. And we realize that it's just a game. There's no reason to be angry at each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's...
Even at our most intense WWE or our most intense Super Smash Brothers, or even when we were doing the 20-round marathon in Dead or Alive.
Yep.
I mean, we gave Joel shit afterwards, of course, but...
I was gonna say, I yelled a lot of things to, was the guy's name Akira?
Oh, yes.
Virtual Fighter? That dude. Ain't no way. But we weren't mad at Joel. We were more frustrated at ourselves for not being able to beat Joel.
Beating Joel at a fighting game should earn you a medal.
Or at least half a handy.
If you can beat him in Soul Calibur when he's playing Astaroth, or if you can beat him in DOA when he's playing Bayman.
Yeah.
You are a god among men.
Yeah, he's very big into countering. So if you can play him in a fighting game where there's no counters, it'll be great. And no blocking, preferably.
I can only beat him as Brad Wong, because the Drunken Boxer is harder to counter. It's the only chance, and even then, he'll beat me 99 out of 100 times. But we are coming up onto an hour now, so do you have any closing statements, Joey?
I do, actually. Make sure you visit Joemiroquai.blogspot.com. I put up a recent metal serial. I hope to be doing another Pixels and Perspectives. Make sure you listen to Geekasaurus Mike and the rest of the Geeks of the Round Table, because they're pumping out some good stuff. I'm going to be doing a little bit more podcasting here soon. I have some games lined up. I'm going to do some bouncing off of the Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. Try to play through them, and it's going to be a good time. That's all that I have. How about you, Mike?
Cool deal. Like Joey said, please check out Joemiroquai.blogspot.com, geeksourcemite.blogspot.com, and the rest of our reviewing group at geeksotroundtable.blogs.com. We always appreciate the viewers, and if you see our stuff on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. I've been away from making videos for a while. I've been doing a lot of Let's Plays with Turk with Jolly Cooperation, but I'm getting some backlog now, and there's going to be not only some more videos coming out, but some more complicated, more complex shoots, and hopefully higher quality videos coming into the near future, so I'm excited to show you guys that. So yeah, we're going to keep on trucking, and hope you stick with us.
Good deal.
Indeed.